Captain Elias Carter woke up to the soft hum of an unfamiliar machine. His head was spinning, his muscles sore. The last thing he remembered was being on a Terran diplomatic ship, heading toward a meeting with the Sci-Fi Dominion. Now, he was lying on a massive bed in a room that looked too luxurious to be a prison, yet it definitely felt like one. The walls shimmered with golden patterns that moved like living ink. Strange floating orbs of light hovered in the corners, casting a dim glow over the room. The air smelled different. Not bad, just alien. Elias sat up quickly, his soldier instincts kicking in. His movement triggered something. A soft chime rang, and the large double doors at the front of the room slid open. A tall Zyphar woman entered. Her deep violet skin and silver eyes marked her as part of the ruling class. She wore a long, flowing gown that shimmered like the walls. Elias had seen Zyphar nobles before, but this one carried an air of authority beyond the others. "You are awake," she said in a calm yet firm voice. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Where am I? What is this place?" The woman studied him for a moment before replying. "You are in the royal palace of Zephyr Prime." Elias's stomach twisted. That wasn't good. Why? Another chime rang, and this time, 2 armored guards stepped inside. They held sleek, curved weapons, energy lances that could cut through steel like butter. Elias's mind raced. If they meant to kill him, why go through all this trouble? The woman took a step closer. "Captain Carter, you have been chosen for a great honor." Elias didn't like the sound of that. What kind of honor? The woman's silver eyes flickered. "You are to marry Princess Velara, heir to the Zyphar throne." Silence filled the room. For a long moment, Elias thought he had misheard. Then he let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "No, absolutely not." The guards tensed at his reaction. The woman, however, remained calm. "This marriage is not a request. It is a necessity for peace between your people and mine." Elias clenched his fists. "Peace. This isn't diplomacy. This is forced." The woman finally showed a hint of emotion. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You misunderstand, Captain. This union was decided long before today. Your government agreed to this arrangement." Elias's mind reeled. The Terran Alliance would never agree to something like this. Would they? He knew the Zyphar were a powerful empire, but humans weren't weak. So why would Earth leaders accept this? Before he could argue, the doors opened again. This time, the woman who entered made everyone else in the room seem insignificant. Princess Velara. She was tall, with the same violet skin and silver eyes as the noblewoman, but there was something different about her. She didn't wear a traditional royal gown. Instead, she had on a sleek, armored suit, as if ready for battle. Her expression was unreadable, but her gaze was sharp, intelligent. Elias straightened instinctively. He had been in the presence of generals, presidents, and warlords, but Velara carried herself differently. She walked up to him, her eyes scanning him carefully. Then she spoke, her voice smooth yet laced with something hard. "I see they didn't bother explaining the full truth to you." Elias folded his arms. "I get the feeling I'm the last one to know anything here." Velara let out a small breath, almost like a sigh. She turned to the noblewoman. "Leave us." The woman hesitated, but after a brief pause, she and the guards obeyed, stepping out and sealing the doors behind them. Elias tensed as Velara moved closer. He wasn't sure whether to expect an attack or a plea. Then she said something that made his blood run cold. "You need to listen carefully, Captain Carter," she said in a lower voice. "You are in danger. This marriage is not about peace." Elias frowned. "Then what is it about?" Velara glanced toward the closed doors, as if making sure no one was listening. Then she looked back at him. "They don't expect you to live long after the wedding." A cold knot tightened in Elias's chest. He had faced enemies on the battlefield, outnumbered and outgunned. But this was something else entirely. He took a slow breath. "Why me? Why not someone else?" Valara studied him for a moment before answering. Because you are human, and because you don't know the truth about your own kind. Elias felt the weight of those words settle over him. He had walked into this situation blind, thinking it was a political game. But now he realized this was something far bigger, something far more dangerous. Before he could ask another question, the doors chimed again. Valara's expression hardened. No matter what happens, act as if nothing is wrong. Elias clenched his jaw. And if I don't? Valara's silver eyes locked onto his. Then you won't survive to find out the truth. The doors slid open, and the guards returned. One of them spoke in a commanding voice. The ceremony begins in 1 hour. Elias took one last look at Valara. Then he nodded. For now, he would play along. But one thing was certain. He would find out the truth. And if they thought humanity was weak, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The great hall of the Sci-Fi Palace was nothing short of breathtaking. Towering crystal pillars stretched toward the high ceiling, shimmering under the light of floating orbs. Thousands of alien nobles had gathered, their elegant robes flowing as they whispered among themselves. At the center of it all stood Captain Elias Carter, dressed in ceremonial armor that felt more like a cage than an honor. His jaw was tight, his mind racing. The wedding was happening. Valara stood beside him, her violet skin glowing under the golden lights. Her silver eyes betrayed nothing. Not fear, not hesitation, not regret. She was calm, too calm. Elias stole a glance at her. He hadn't forgotten her warning. They don't expect you to live long after the wedding. His instincts screamed at him to run, to fight, to do something. But Earth's survival was on the line. If he resisted, if he made a scene, it could spark a war between humanity and the Sci-Fi Dominion. So, for now, he played along. A deep voice echoed through the hall. Step forward. An elder Sci-Fi priest, draped in silver and gold, stood at the front of the ceremonial platform. His ancient eyes studied Elias as if trying to look into his soul. Elias and Valara moved forward, side by side. The moment felt heavy, unreal. He had been through brutal battles, seen death up close, but this was different. The priest raised his arms. Before the Dominion and the stars, this union is sealed. The blood of 2 worlds shall be bound as one. Elias tensed as a ceremonial blade was presented. Valara took it first, dragging the sharp edge lightly across her palm. A drop of dark silver blood fell onto a glowing crystal. Then the blade was handed to Elias. He hesitated. Every fiber of his being warned him that this ritual wasn't just symbolic. It meant something real. Valara gave him a subtle nod. Taking a slow breath, Elias gritted his teeth and sliced the blade across his palm. His red human blood dripped onto the same crystal. For a brief moment, the crystal pulsed with light. The priest's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly, as if he hadn't expected something. Whispers spread through the noble crowd. Elias caught a few words in their language. The prophecy. It was true. He frowned, but before he could ask, the priest raised his hands once more. The bond is complete. You are now one in name, in power, in fate. A chime rang through the hall, and a sea of voices rose in cheer. The wedding was done. Elias had officially married Princess Valara of the Sci-Fi Dominion. But in the pit of his stomach, he knew this was just the beginning. The first warning. The celebration was brief. No sooner had the ceremony ended than Elias was pulled away by Zephyr guards. They escorted him through the winding halls of the palace, their expressions blank, their grip firm. Valara walked beside him, just as silent. Finally, they arrived at an ornate chamber, its walls decorated with glowing blue symbols. The guard stepped aside, motioning for him to enter. Elias hesitated. "This isn't our room, is it?" he muttered. Valara shook her head. No. Before he could ask anything else, the doors slid shut behind them, locking with a soft hiss. Elias scanned the chamber. It wasn't a prison, but it wasn't a royal suite either. A long table stood at the center, and beside it, a figure in dark robes. The figure turned, revealing an older Sci-Fi male with piercing silver eyes. His expression was unreadable, but something about him felt dangerous. Valera's voice was sharp. "You should not have come." The old man ignored her, focusing on Elias instead. "You are the human." Elias folded his arms. "Yeah, and you are." The man tilted his head. "I am Lord Zyros, High Seer of the Dominion." Elias had heard of him. A powerful figure, one of the few people who advised the Emperor himself. Zyros stepped forward. "Tell me, Captain Carter, do you know what truly happened today?" Elias clenched his jaw. "I got forced into a political marriage. Pretty hard to miss." Zyros let out a slow breath. "No, it is much worse than that." He gestured toward the crystal used in the wedding ritual, still glowing faintly. "The moment your blood touched this stone, you triggered a truth that was hidden for centuries." Elias narrowed his eyes. "What truth?" Zyros' gaze darkened. "That humanity is far more important than you have been led to believe." Assassins in the dark. Before Elias could question further, the lights flickered. A sharp sound, like metal slicing through air, echoed from behind him. An attack. Elias reacted instantly, diving forward as a blade narrowly missed his head. A masked figure, clad in black armor, had appeared from the shadows, moving with deadly precision. Valera was faster. With a flick of her wrist, a hidden energy blade ignited, clashing against the assassin's weapon. Sparks flew as they fought in a blur of motion. Elias rolled to his feet, his combat instincts taking over. He grabbed a chair and hurled it at the assassin, buying himself a split second to react. Zyros moved back, his face calm despite the chaos. The assassin was skilled, too skilled to be an outsider. Elias gritted his teeth. "Your own people are trying to kill me, aren't they?" Valera didn't answer. She spun, delivering a swift kick that sent the assassin crashing into the table. Without hesitation, Elias lunged forward and landed a powerful punch, knocking the attacker unconscious. Silence followed. Then, Valera turned to Zyros. "They're moving faster than we expected." Zyros nodded, his expression grim. "Then you must tell him the truth, before it is too late." Elias exhaled heavily, his hands still clenched into fists. He looked at Valera. "Start talking." She met his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. "The prophecy," she said quietly. "The reason they chose you. The reason they fear you." She took a deep breath. "Elias, humans once ruled this galaxy." The words hit him like a shockwave. He had been brought here against his will, forced into a marriage he never wanted, hunted in the shadows. But now, the pieces were falling into place, and the truth was far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Elias Carter stared at Valera, his mind struggling to process her words. Humans once ruled this galaxy. It didn't make sense. Humanity was young compared to the ancient empires of the stars. The Sci-Fi Dominion alone had ruled for thousands of years. How could humans have once been the dominant power? He crossed his arms, his voice low. "You're going to have to explain that." Valera glanced at Zyros, the old Sci-Fi seer who had watched the entire assassination attempt unfold without so much as flinching. The old man gave her a slow nod. Taking a deep breath, Valera finally spoke. "A long time ago, before our records even began, humans weren't just another species in the galaxy. You were our rulers." Elias frowned. "That's impossible." Zyros stepped forward. "Is it?" He pointed at the crystal that had absorbed Elias's blood during the wedding ceremony. "That stone is not just a symbol. It is an ancient artifact, one of the last remnants of the old empire. It reacts only to the blood of those who once sat upon the throne of stars." Elias let out a short, humorless laugh. "And you're saying that's me?" Valera's silver eyes locked onto his. "It's not just you. It's your entire species." Silence filled the room. Tyros continued, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. The Sci-Fi Dominion, the Relic Enclave, the Vorek Federation, all the great empires of today. They were once your subjects. But something happened. Something erased the memory of humanity's reign from history itself. Elias shook his head. That still doesn't explain why they want me dead. Valera's jaw tightened, because if humanity remembers what was stolen from them, they might take it back. A chill ran down Elias's spine. This wasn't just about him. This was about Earth, the shadow conspiracy. Elias paced the chamber, trying to make sense of everything. If what Valara and Cyros were saying was true, then humanity wasn't some small, struggling species in the galaxy. They were something greater, something feared. He stopped. How do you know all of this? Valara hesitated before answering. I wasn't supposed to. The Dominion hides the truth. Even our highest scholars are only given fragments of the past. But when I was younger, I found something. Elias raised an eyebrow. Found what? A hidden archive deep beneath the palace. It contained records, old star maps, and something else. Cyros completed the sentence for her. A warning. Elias's fingers curled into fists. From who? Valara's voice was quiet. From your ancestors. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Elias, before they disappeared, the old human rulers left behind messages, locked away in secret places, warnings about a great betrayal, about something they called the Eclipse War. Elias's mind raced. No history book on Earth mentioned anything about an eclipse war. Cyros continued, we do not know the full details, but we do know one thing. Humanity did not fall naturally. They were erased. Elias felt his pulse quicken. That explained why the Dominion was so desperate to keep him under control. If humanity ever learned the truth, they wouldn't just accept their place as a lesser power. They would rise. And that terrified those in power. A dangerous offer. Before Elias could say anything, a sudden alarm blared through the palace. Cyros's expression darkened. They've discovered the failed assassination. Valara grabbed Elias's arm. We need to leave. Elias didn't argue. If the Dominion wanted him dead, they weren't going to stop with just one attempt. But as they moved toward the exit, Cyros called out, wait. Valara stopped, her hand still gripping Elias's wrist. Cyros looked at Elias with an intensity that made his skin crawl. There is another way. Elias frowned. What are you talking about? Cyros stepped forward. You don't need to run. You need to fight. Valara's eyes widened. Cyros. The seer ignored her, his voice firm. The Sci-Fi Dominion is not as united as it seems. There are those who suspect the truth, those who would stand against the Emperor if given the chance. Elias narrowed his eyes. You're talking about a rebellion. Cyros nodded. I am offering you a choice, Captain Carter. Flee and spend the rest of your life in hiding. He paused, then added, or claim what is rightfully yours. Elias exhaled. The weight of the decision settled over him like a mountain. Escape meant survival. But it also meant leaving humanity in the dark. Fighting back. That was another thing entirely. Finally, he looked at Valara. What do you think? She didn't hesitate. The Dominion will never stop hunting you. If you run, they'll find you. If you fight, at least you have a chance. Elias ran a hand through his hair. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He was just a soldier, a captain, sure, but not some legendary ruler from a forgotten empire. But deep down, something in his gut told him this was right. Finally, he turned back to Cyros. All right. Cyros's silver eyes gleamed. Then we must move quickly. Elias squared his shoulders, determination settling in. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity was. It was time to remind them. Elias Carter had faced impossible odds before. Ambushes, space battles, close quarters combat. But nothing had prepared him for this. He had just learned that humanity was once the ruler of the galaxy, that their history had been erased, and that the Sci-Fi Dominion had no intention of letting him live now that he knew the truth. Now, standing in a dimly lit chamber deep inside the palace, he had a choice: run or fight. Elias clenched his fists. "All right," he said, meeting Cyros's gaze. "I won't run. But if we're going to fight, we need a plan." Vaylura nodded, her silver eyes filled with determination. "Then we must leave this palace immediately. The longer we stay, the more dangerous it becomes." A sudden boom echoed through the corridors. The walls shook, and the room's glowing crystal lights flickered. Cyros's expression darkened. "They are coming." Elias grabbed his sidearm. He wasn't going to let himself be captured like some helpless pawn. "Then let's move." Betrayal in the shadows. Vaylura led the way through the palace's secret tunnels, hidden behind ancient walls covered in glowing blue symbols. The tunnel smelled of old stone and energy residue from long-forgotten technology. Elias stayed close, keeping his blaster ready. Cyros followed behind, moving surprisingly fast for someone his age. As they neared an exit, Vaylura stopped suddenly. Elias tensed. "What is it?" Then he saw it. A squad of Sci-Fi soldiers stood blocking their path. Their armor gleamed under the dim tunnel lights, weapons raised. And at the front of them stood Lord Varric, Vaylura's uncle, and one of the most powerful nobles in the Dominion. "Going somewhere, Princess." Varric's voice was smooth, almost amused. His reptilian features twisted into a cruel smile. "I expected better from you." Vaylura's grip tightened on her energy blade. "Get out of our way, Varric." Varric shook his head. "You should not have involved yourself with this human." His cold silver eyes locked onto Elias. "You should not have let him live." Elias smirked, trying to mask the tension. "Sorry to disappoint." Varric sighed, then motioned to his soldiers. "Kill him." The soldiers raised their weapons. Vaylura moved first. Her energy blade ignited in a flash of violet light as she leaped forward, cutting through the first soldier's weapon before he could fire. Sparks flew, and the air filled with the scent of burning metal. Elias didn't hesitate. He dove for cover, rolling behind a stone pillar as the corridor erupted in blaster fire. Red and blue energy bolts streaked through the air. Cyros, standing calmly in the middle of the chaos, raised his hand. A pulse of invisible force rippled outward, knocking two soldiers off their feet. Elias took advantage of the distraction, popping up from cover and landing 3 precise shots. The soldiers fell instantly. Varric snarled, stepping back. His eyes flicked to Vaylura. "You would betray your own people for a lost cause." Vaylura's expression was cold. "I would betray you." She swung her blade. Varric barely dodged, retreating into the shadows. For now, he was gone. But Elias knew this wasn't over. A desperate escape. They ran through the tunnels, emerging into a hidden docking bay. Sleek silver ships lined the chamber, guarded by a handful of loyalists, Sci-Fi rebels who still believed in the old ways. A tall, scared Sci-Fi soldier saluted Vaylura. "Your Highness, we are ready." Elias was already scanning the ships. "Which one is the fastest?" The soldier pointed to a black stealth cruiser at the far end of the bay. "That one, the Shadowfang." Vaylura grabbed Elias's arm. "Then that's our way out." They sprinted toward the ship. Behind them, alarms blared, and the palace's security doors began slamming shut. Elias cursed. "We don't have time for a slow takeoff. We need tow." A deafening explosion cut him off. The bay doors at the far end had blown open, and through the smoke, dozens of Sci-Fi soldiers charged in. They were out of time. "Go!" Vaylura shouted. Cyros and the Loyalists provided cover, firing at the incoming soldiers. Elias and Vaylura raced up the ramp into the Shadowfang. The ship's interior was sleek and dark, lined with holographic controls. Elias didn't waste time admiring it. He dashed straight to the pilot's seat. Vaylura jumped into the co-pilot's chair, activating the ship's systems. Engines online. Shields up. Elias grabbed the controls. Hold on. The Shadowfang roared to life, its thrusters blasting the docking bay with a shockwave as it lifted off. Outside, enemy ships were already preparing to intercept. Elias clenched his jaw. Not today. He pushed the thrusters to full power, sending the ship into a sharp barrel roll as it blasted out of the palace. Alarms screamed as pursuing Sci-Fi fighters locked onto them. Valera's fingers danced over the controls. Jump coordinates set. Elias glanced at the sensors. The enemy ships were closing in fast. He had one shot at this. Gritting his teeth, he yanked the controls to the side, dodging a barrage of laser fire before slamming his hand onto the hyperdrive activation switch. The stars stretched into infinity, and in the blink of an eye, they were gone. The war begins. Silence filled the cockpit. Elias exhaled, his grip loosening on the controls. We made it. Valera let out a slow breath. For now. Cyros's voice came through the comms. Captain Carter, Princess Valera, this was only the beginning. Elias turned in his seat, meeting Valera's gaze. They had escaped the Sci-Fi Dominion, but the real fight was just starting. Because now he knew the truth. Humanity had been the rightful rulers of the galaxy, and one way or another, they would rise again. Elias Carter had escaped the Sci-Fi Dominion, but that didn't mean he was safe. The Shadowfang drifted through the darkness of space, its engines humming softly. Inside the cockpit, Elias leaned forward, staring at the star map displayed on the holographic screen. Valera sat beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the same screen. We can't stay in open space for long, she said. The Dominion will track us soon. Cyros's voice crackled through the ship's comms. I have already chosen our destination. Elias turned in his seat. And where exactly are we going? The old seer appeared on the holographic projector, his face calm as ever. To the lost world of Exalthus. Valera's expression shifted from concern to surprise. That's just a myth. Zyros shook his head. No, Princess. It is very real, and it is where we will find our army. The lost world. The Shadowfang emerged from hyperspace, and for a moment, Elias saw nothing but darkness. No planets. No stars. Just endless void. Then, like a shadow emerging from the night, a massive hidden planet came into view. Exalthus. The scanners buzzed with interference. The planet was surrounded by an energy field, making it almost impossible to detect. Elias whistled. No wonder nobody found this place. Valera leaned closer to the screen. But why here? What makes this planet special? Cyros's voice was steady. Because this is where the last remnants of the old human empire went into hiding. Elias's breath caught. Survivors. If Kairos was right, then humanity's true history had never been completely erased. There were still those who remembered, and they had been waiting. The forgotten soldiers. Elias guided the ship through the atmosphere, breaking through thick storm clouds before descending toward the surface. Below, an ancient city stretched across the landscape. Massive towers, crumbling structures, and enormous battle stations built into the mountains. But what caught Elias's attention the most was the people. Thousands of human soldiers, wearing armor unlike anything he had ever seen, stood in formation, waiting. As the Shadowfang landed, Elias felt a strange sense of déjà vu, like this wasn't his first time here. The ship's ramp lowered, and the moment Elias stepped out, a voice boomed across the city. The hair has returned. Elias froze. A tall, battle-scarred human in golden armor stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, his face hardened by war. He saluted. I am General Kaler, and we have been waiting for you, Captain Elias Carter. Elias exchanged a glance with Valera. He had no idea what he was stepping into. The truth of the past. Inside the war chamber, General Kaler unrolled a holographic map of the galaxy. The stars blinked like tiny flames, but one section was marked in red. The territory of the Sci-Fi Dominion. Kaler pointed at it. This is the enemy. The ones who stole our empire. The ones who erased our history. Elias crossed his arms. And how do I fit into this? Kaler's eyes darkened. Because you are the last direct descendant of the Emperor of Terra. Silence filled the room. Elias let out a small laugh. That's impossible. Kaler's voice was firm. The crystal at your wedding recognized your bloodline. Only the true heir of humanity could activate it. Valera's voice was soft. Elias, that means. Elias exhaled. That means the Dominion was right to be afraid. Zyros stepped forward. This army has been waiting for centuries. They hid here, training, preparing for the day when the true heir would return. Elias looked around at the soldiers standing nearby, their eyes filled with hope. For them, this wasn't just a war. This was a reclamation, and Elias had just been placed at the center of it. A dangerous choice. Kaler's gaze hardened. Elias, we have ships, weapons, and warriors who are ready to fight. But we need a leader. Elias felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. He was a soldier, not an emperor. But if what they said was true, then humanity had been wrongfully stripped of its place in the stars. And now, after all these years, they had a chance to take it back. Valera stepped closer. This isn't just about the past. If we do nothing, the Dominion will keep hunting you. And Earth will never know the truth. Elias clenched his fists. He had always fought to protect his people. Now he had the chance to free them. After a long silence, he stepped forward and met Kaler's gaze. All right, he said, let's take back what was stolen. Kaler smiled. Then welcome home, Commander. The room erupted into cheers. The war for humanity's future had begun. Elias Carter had never imagined himself leading an army. Yet here he stood, inside the massive war chamber of Exalthus, surrounded by human soldiers who had been waiting for his return. The forgotten warriors of Earth's lost empire. They were strong, loyal, determined. And now, they were looking at him to lead them into battle against the Sci-Fi Dominion. Elias took a deep breath. All right, he said, stepping forward. Tell me everything. How many troops do we have? How many ships? And what's our best chance of striking first? General Kaler, the battle-hardened leader of these hidden soldiers, nodded. We have 50,000 trained fighters and several warships hidden across the system. But it won't be enough for a full-scale war. Elias frowned. Then we need more. Valera, standing beside him, crossed her arms. There are others who oppose the Dominion. Rebel groups. Lost colonies. If we can unite them, we might stand a chance. Cyrus, the wise old seer, spoke next. The key is not brute force, Captain Carter. The key is inspiration. If the people of the galaxy know that humanity's true heir has returned, many will rise against the Dominion. Elias ran a hand through his hair. So we don't just need soldiers. We need a symbol. Kaler smiled. We already have one. He pressed a button on the war table, and a holographic image appeared. Elias's eyes widened. It was an ancient human battleship, hidden deep inside a ruined station near Exalthus. It was massive, powerful, a warship from the golden age of humanity. Kaler's voice was filled with pride. The Titan's Wrath, the last of the Imperial dreadnoughts. Elias grinned. Now that's a symbol. The race against time. The decision was made. Their first mission was to recover the Titan's Wrath. But they weren't the only ones looking for it. The Sci-Fi Dominion had detected activity near Exalthus. It wouldn't take long before they sent scouts. Elias and his team had to move fast. Inside the hangar bay of Exalthus, the soldiers were already preparing. Elias walked toward his team. Valera was inspecting her energy blade, while Cyrus was studying an ancient datapad. He turned to Kaler. Who's coming with us? Kaler gestured toward a group of elite warriors. The Imperial Guard. They were trained for missions like this. Elias nodded. Then let's not waste time. The team boarded the Shadowfang, and within minutes they were heading toward the ruined space station where the Titan's wrath was waiting. A deadly discovery. The space station drifted in the cold void, its metal structure covered in ancient battle scars. Elias stared at the massive wreckage through the cockpit window. It's been here for centuries. Valera activated the scanners. There's a breathable atmosphere inside. But her expression darkened. We're not alone. Elias frowned. Explain. She pointed at the scanner readings. There are life signs inside the station. Zyros spoke in a calm voice. Survivors. Kaler shook his head. Or worse. The Shadowfang docked at the station's entrance, and the team stepped out, weapons ready. The air was thick with dust. The metal walls were cracked, rusted, and covered in old markings from a forgotten war. As they moved deeper inside, Elias felt something watching them. Then, a shadow moved. Elias raised his weapon just as something lunged at him from the darkness. A Sci-Fi hunter. Its reptilian eyes glowed. Its armor was battle-worn, and its claws were deadly sharp. Elias barely dodged as it swung at his throat. The rest of the team opened fire, energy blasts lighting up the dark corridor. The creature roared before collapsing, but more shadows appeared, dozens of them. Valera gritted her teeth. They got here first. Kaler pulled out his blade. Then let's take back what's ours. The battle began. Claiming the warship, the fight was brutal. The Zyphar hunters were fast, deadly, and had the advantage of knowing the station's layout. But Elias's team fought harder. With every fallen enemy, they pushed deeper inside, toward the heart of the station, where the Titan's wrath was waiting. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the command bridge. Elias looked up in awe. The warship was still intact. Ancient, yes, but powerful. Valera ran to the control panel. I can activate it, but it'll take time. Elias turned to the others. Then we hold the line. The team fortified their position, using debris and old barricades to block the doors. The Zyphar forces were closing in. Elias stood at the front, gripping his blaster. Let them come. The awakening of the Titan. The station shook as the Zyphar forces launched their final attack. Blaster fire filled the air. Explosions rocked the corridors. The enemy was relentless. But then, a deep rumble echoed through the station. The Titan's wrath came to life. Its massive engines roared, its systems activated. Valera's voice rang through the comms. We have control. Elias grinned. Then let's show them what an old warship can do. The station's docking bay doors opened, and the Titan's wrath ascended into space. Zyphar fighters tried to intercept, but the dreadnought's cannons lit up the void, blasting them aside. Elias stood on the bridge, watching as the Dominion ships retreated. They had won. But the war was just beginning. The call to arms. Back on Exalthus, the return of the Titan's wrath sent a wave of hope through the hidden human army. Kaler stood before his soldiers. Today, we have proven that humanity is not lost. Elias stepped forward. He had been a soldier, a survivor, a man who just wanted to protect his people. But now he was something more. He raised his fist. We fight for our future. We fight for our past. And we fight because we will not let them erase us again. The soldiers roared. The war for humanity's freedom had begun. The time for hiding was over. Elias Carter stood on the bridge of the Titan's wrath, staring at the massive fleet before him. Human warships, rebel vessels, and fighters from countless lost colonies had gathered. They had answered the call. They were ready to fight. Valera stood beside him, her silver eyes filled with determination. This is it, she said. The moment we take back what was stolen. Zyros, the wise seer, nodded. The Zyphar Dominion will not surrender easily. But today, they will learn that humanity does not break. General Kaler stepped forward. The Dominion's main fleet is stationed at Vorak Prime, their most powerful stronghold. If we take it, the Dominion will fall. Elias clenched his fists. He had never wanted to be a leader, but now he had no choice. He opened the comms to the fleet. "This is Elias Carter," he said. "For too long, we have been hunted. For too long, we have been forgotten. But today, we take back our place in the stars." The response was a thunderous roar through the comms. The fleet moved forward. The final battle had begun. The Dominion's last stand. As the fleet entered Dominion space, alarms blared across the enemy stations. Sci-Fi warships emerged from the darkness, hundreds of them. Their fleet was massive, but not invincible. Elias turned to his crew. "All fighters, launch. Shields up. Prepare for impact." The first wave of Dominion warships charged forward, cannons firing. The battlefield exploded with energy blasts and missile fire. The battle had begun. The chaos of war. The Titan's Wrath led the charge, its ancient weapons tearing through enemy ships. Valera piloted her fighter through the battlefield, taking down Sci-Fi bombers before they could reach the fleet. Kaler commanded the ground forces, preparing to storm the Dominion stronghold. But the enemy was relentless. A Sci-Fi dreadnought locked onto the Titan's Wrath, its cannons charging. Elias barely had time to react. Brace for impact. The enemy ship fired. But at the last second, a human warship took the hit, sacrificing itself to protect them. Elias gritted his teeth. "We won't let their sacrifice be in vain." Press the attack. The fleet pushed forward, breaking through the enemy's defenses. The final phase of the battle had begun. Storming Vorak Prime, Elias, Valera, and Kaler led a team of elite soldiers onto the surface of Vorak Prime. The Dominion's fortress was heavily guarded, but nothing would stop them now. Blaster fire filled the air as human forces clashed with Sci-Fi warriors. Valera fought with her energy blade, cutting through enemies with precision. Kaler led the charge, rallying the soldiers. Elias pushed forward, his blaster taking down enemy after enemy. The Dominion's supreme commander, a towering figure in golden armor, stepped forward. "You cannot win," he growled. "The Dominion is eternal." Elias narrowed his eyes. Not anymore. The final duel had begun. The duel of fate. Elias and the Supreme Commander clashed in the center of the battlefield. Blades met with sparks. Blaster shots rang through the air. The commander was strong, but Elias was faster. With a final powerful strike, Elias defeated his enemy. The Dominion's forces began to fall back. The battle was almost over. Victory and freedom. With the fortress taken and the Dominion's fleet in retreat, the war was finally coming to an end. Elias stood on the command platform, watching as the Sci-Fi banners were torn down. The galaxy was free. Valera stepped beside him. "We did it." Elias exhaled. "No, we all did it." The humans, the rebels, and even former Dominion citizens had fought together. For the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer forgotten. They were home. A new beginning. Days later, a council was formed, a new government to unite the free worlds. Elias stood before the people, the symbol of their resistance. They wanted him to be their leader, but he shook his head. "I am not a ruler. I am a soldier. This future belongs to all of us." Instead, he stepped down, allowing the people to choose their own destiny. Valera smiled. "So what now?" Elias looked at the stars. "Now we rebuild. Together." And with that, humanity's new era began. The war was over, but their story was just beginning.